The greatest gift that we have as human beings, as physical beings living this physical existence, is our five senses. The gift of being able to see the sun, the sea, the stars, and the people that we love. The gift of being able to hear the whistle of the wind and sea lapping up on the beach and hearing someone saying, I love you. The gift of being able to taste chocolate and wine, which with COVID at the moment I can't. And the gift of being able to touch in terms of a kiss or a hug. These are the true gifts in life. And if you really appreciate the true five senses for the basics that they are, getting out in nature and enjoying life, it'll reduce your stress and increase your energy to perform at the highest level in everything you do and gleam that inner glow.
Doug, you're very welcome to the ScaleX Insider Podcast. Delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today.
Brendan, it's an absolute pleasure. We got introduced by one of my favorite people in the world, Jack Daly, who spoke at your ScaleX Summit. And I have to say, it's the greatest gift that I got in 2024.
Wow. I feel very privileged. Jack is incredible. Of course, a previous guest on our ScaleX Insider podcast. And I understand now why Jack is friendly with you. Both of you have similar energy levels. So I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation. We have connected on a number of occasions off air. You know intimately our vision is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small to medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. So, Doug, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
Well, it aligns to my mission, because my mission is to help people connect to their heart self rather than their head self and find whatever their true passion and mission is in life and follow that and help them get there in any way or form. So it's all about alignment to that real heart self purpose, about understanding what really drives you to get up in the morning with that zest and go out there and really make it happen. So I think it's very important because so many people follow their mums or their dads down some kind of path that isn't really theirs. And I think we really need to find what is our purpose and then go out there and really passionately do it. And I know that you guys do that. So when you're scaling up, you're going to wake up, whether it be 6 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever, with a real spring in your step and go out there and do it. And hopefully, like you, I'm trying to help people do that.
Yeah, lovely. Well, let's get into that in terms of helping people do that. For those who are not familiar with your wonderful self, can you share with people kind of an abridged version of your journey from the corporate investment world, where actually you led a very significant scale up, to the work that you're actually doing now?
Sure, Brendan. Yeah, so I spent 21 years in the investment world, working my way up from sales support to sales management, sales director, head of sales, and then board director. And during that time period, I worked for some amazing companies like Fidelity, Columbia Threadneedle, HSBC Asset Management. And then my final one over here was Davy Asset Management, which really I came back to Ireland because my father-in-law had cancer and kidney failure. We want to come back and look after him. But during that time period, I worked basically, selling mutual funds, hedge funds, investment funds to B2B, to some of the biggest banks in the world, JP Morgan, UBS, and people like that. And during that time period, particularly when I was working for Columbia Threadneedle, where I worked for almost 10 years, I grew the business there in the UK from 50 million per annum sales to 1.75 billion. And just to give you an example of, kind of deals that I did, it was, I remember, in one of my biggest deals was with Jupiter Asset Management. I'd actually sold 275 million of our emerging market debt fund to them. And at the time, then we had a rogue trader. It's in the press. I'm not giving anything away. We had a rogue trader in the team, and he was doing a deal with a Russian brokerage at the other end, and basically the Russian brokerage was taking the money. And when that happened, obviously the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority, came down like a ton of bricks, and it completely, destroyed the team. They left, they went to Standard Life. One guy stayed, who was a Brazilian guy that could hardly speak English, but he was a very good fund manager. And at that point, my CEO said to me, the money's going to walk. It's like having Lewis Hamilton leave Mercedes. There's no chance of keeping it. And I had that faith in myself, this knowing in myself that I knew the client, I knew this guy, the Brazilian guy, was good, and I knew I had the ability to better connect them and really try and keep that business. And I sat down with the client and told them what had happened. I sat down with the fund manager or the guy who was left and explained what the client was looking for. I connected them, but I also knew that the potential, if they were going to take it away, they could still maybe take it away and put in one of our other funds. So I knew they liked our European equity fund as well. So I asked them, would they interview our European equity fund manager? Ended up bringing in both guys, ended up keeping both the emerging market debt money, but also winning an extra 330 million into the European Equity Fund as well. And they added a further 250 million to the emerging market debt fund. So my mindset was always, resilience, never give up, loyalty to the customer, give the customer the best, and also really help and work closely with the fund managers and the other people around me to communicate effectively with them, to be able to communicate that message across the client so that we could create business. And that's how I was successful. But during that time period, as most people remember, in 2008, markets got hit. I didn't realize how empathetic I was towards energy. And at that point, I ended up getting ailments and stress stuff, ended up seeing doctors and then specialists. Then I had 2 operations at the end of 2009 that went wrong, which basically on my digestive gut. And at that point, then I was feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach after they went wrong. Woken up maybe 10 or 12 times in the night, had effect on my marriage, had effect on everything that I was doing. I was going jaded into work all the time, but still effective in what I was doing. But at that period, it was probably one of the hardest periods of my life. And then in 2013, I got the norovirus, which is like a stomach bomb. And with the operations that I had, he didn't want to get that. And after 10 days of serious dehydration, electrolytes down to virtually zero, I was rushed in an ambulance to St. Helier's Hospital in Sutton, in Surrey. And at that point, ECG said heart, blood pressure had doubled. I had the worst pain in my chest you could possibly imagine. Brought into A&E, then they thought there was a blockage in the gut, so they rushed me down to X-ray. And on the way down to X-ray, suddenly I was encapsulated in this amazing feeling of love, energy, and connection. Nothing like I've ever felt before. There's no man with a beard, but there was this living, conscious energy that was binding and connecting me. And I knew I was having this near-death experience. There's no man saying anything, but there was this knowing, saying I needed to change my life in some way or form. Obviously came back, otherwise I wouldn't be speaking to you today. And then gradually, even though the ego, which I always say edges God out, was in the way, gradually I started setting up stuff. Initially, I became a healer to heal myself, and then started healing other people, then was offered a radio show, then got into life coaching, speaking, and then corporate training. And since then, I've been doing that for the last 7 years. It's been very effective, met some amazing people, wrote the book, as you know, and met amazing people like yourself because of it as well. So the path basically was taking me away from just pure corporate world, pure making money, which is the way I saw it at the time, into something that was passionate and purposeful, that was aligned to turning my mess into a message to give it meaning, to help other people in some way or form.
And I've had the privilege of reading your wonderful book, Charge Yourself Up for Success. Those who are listening won't be able to see this, but I encourage you as we begin the new year, this is very, very apt because it's hugely practical in terms of actually tools, techniques to support us in bringing wonderful energy. And I always think of the acronym CEO, which is an old kind of military acronym, but I like to think of CEO as Chief Energy Officer as opposed to Chief Executive Officer. And certainly you are the chief of the chiefs. But before we get into the book, because I'd love to do a little kind of mini masterclass of some of your success formulas in the book, you mention that you were very much focused on money, focused on the bottom line, ego-driven, as opposed to the way you see the world now, which is about doing meaningful work, really anchoring what you do in a purpose. What would you have done differently in the same world if you could go back kind of 15 years? How would you frame what you were doing back then in the context of the way you see the world now?
Great question. And it's a simple answer, really, because back then I was taking money from one organization to another in terms of, we had very good performance at Columbia Threadneedle, for example. So we were able to bring across people from other banks, institutions, fund managers across to us. And there was the great feeling of chasing that deal. Yeah. But actually, when you won the deal, it felt a bit empty. I mean, the journey was good, but the actual result was a bit empty. And what I realize now, if I'd reframed it in a different way, understanding that the end customer, that granny or grandpa, we were helping them being in a better investment portfolio. So by doing that, by actually winning business, what I was actually doing is helping that granny or grandpa retire younger, give more money to their children, more money to charity, or buy a better retirement home. So actually, we're enabling them to have a better life. And I think in any job that you have, in corporate world, wherever, if you can reframe what you do into the energetics of how it interlinks to the end customer and how it benefits them in some way or form, it can really give you an extra zest to be able to spring out of bed every single day. And I think that sense of purpose, that sense of understanding can really help you have a different perspective of what you do. And I didn't have that at that point in time. And that's where I would now reframe that for myself. And then as a leader, I would basically implant that and embed that and embody that in all the people that I worked with to make sure they realized they were bettering lives in some way or form.
I absolutely love that. And that's the heart of everything that we do. And I assert that if you've got a wonderful product or service, then you have an obligation to bring that to the world, to widen your impact, to increase your reach, to support people in alleviating a pain, or actually supporting them in achieving a goal and accelerating their journey towards the goals that they're trying to achieve. What would you say, Doug, to those who might say, yeah, but come on, because it's what you shared earlier. Everybody who's listening to this, and every leader will understand, every leader's a salesperson, and especially leaders of their own businesses, they've all had to sell what they do at some point in time if they're not still doing that. That kind of the feeling you get when you win a deal, regardless of whether it's 2 grand, 20 grand, 200 grand, 2 million, that feeling, and then the kind of the hollowness and the rush on to the next one, and it becomes like this drug. What you're suggesting is, look, we're chasing the wrong things. If you can actually reframe what you're doing, then you have a much better chance here of actually waking up, feeling energized to begin with. But how do you address the initial kind of inauthenticity of that? If we're saying, oh no, come on, I know my ego's I know this is about winning the deal, but I'm going to kind of reframe it that we're helping grannies and grandas out there. But look, at my heart of hearts, I'm chasing the deal. I'm chasing the top line here. There's a commission check coming down the line. How do we, you had a beautiful phraseology for this in terms of embedding this in our hearts. That will sound likely abstract to a lot of people listening. So how do we do that? Because I absolutely agree with you, the importance of actually anchoring what you do to a purpose. But we want to ensure that we do that authentically and embed that as you suggest.
100%. Yeah, I think, well, one of my great friends is Stephen Covey, as in Stephen Covey Jr., who wrote Speed of Trust, which is a New York Times bestseller. And authenticity and trust is the most important thing in sales and business. Because the one thing I always find is I get paid every single time on time because I'm authentic. And because I'm authentic, you tend to attract authenticity as well. And I think in life, I think when we can really embody our true passion in life and come from that energetic understanding that money is just an exchange for energy, experience, or time. And mostly that experience comes from a lot of energy, having to learn something, a skill or something like that. So that everything in life in some way or form is interconnected towards energy. So if we can come from an authentic energy, that we really are trying to better the world, really trying to add value to people in some way or form, you'll tend to make a lot more money out of it as a end result of that anyway. Whereas I think people sometimes get it the wrong way around, where they focus totally on making money. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to make money. And I do believe the more money that you have, the more people you can actually help in some way or form. So by being able to travel, being able to meet people, connect with people, create like you and I do, create events for people, everything. And you need money to be able to do that. So the more money that you make, I believe the more money people you can touch. And actually, Stephen Bartlett, who I know spoke at your event last year, says that as well. He wasn't sure. He actually asked some Buddhist guru before he got into everything, as it says in his book, what should I do? Because I want to go out and help maybe African people or something like that. And the Buddhist guy or whoever it was said, no, go out there, find something you're passionate about, make loads of money through it, and then utilize that money to help more people. Yeah. You get more impact on it. So that's why I think it's important.
How would you go back and converse with the Doug of then, who egocentric, really driving the top bottom line, chasing the deal, because that Doug is unlikely to engage with the Doug of now, how would you encourage that Doug to begin changing their thinking around what they do in the context of providing more meaning and ultimately anchoring into a purpose? And all of that language even may have been very abstract to the Doug back then. So what would that look like to take them on the journey so that ultimately they can anchor what they're doing to purpose? Because I'm 100% with you, and we've seen the results that purpose-driven companies actually realize are significantly more than those who don't. So there's a commercial and a business rationale for really anchoring what you do as a leader to something that's meaningful. How do you start to take somebody on that journey, Doug?
Yeah, so if I was speaking to my younger self, I would say, Doug, I know how much you love hockey. I know how much you train for hockey. I know how much you focus on the goal. I know how much you visualize every single day knocking that ball in the top corner. I know how much you train every single week to practice all the little dribbles, all the little shots, all the little pushes. Why the fuck do you not do that in your business as well? And I think this is so important, that we work so hard in sports to be able to perform at the highest level. And I play Premier League hockey. I was playing alongside international players. And I worked like an absolute trooper for that. And I would say to the younger Doug, say, look, when do you play the best? You play the best when you have the best mindset. You play the best when you have the best sleep. You play the best when you're the fittest. You play the best when you've visualized every single little time that right winger's running down the line and flicking it back to you at the top of the D and you flicking it in there. So why the bleep do you not do that in business as well? And why do you not align yourself to really enjoying what you do in an energetic sense of the heightened energy that you have in hockey in your business as well? Because you'll enjoy it so much more. So get out off your ass and go and do the same thing you do for hockey that you do in your job.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's get into this. Let's get super tactical then. You mentioned in your book a number of formulas for success. The book is kind of the overarching formula is aligned to the MAKE acronym, and then we get into the GLEAM acronym at the end of the book. I love that. I think in acronyms as well. So let's share with our listeners. Of course, I encourage everyone who's listening, everybody who's watching, go out and buy the book. But let's just get into a little mini masterclass of the key formulas for success in the book, Doug.
Yeah, so the MAKE acronym, it actually came when I was in the investment world. We always used to say, I used to say to my team that activity plus knowledge equals sales. So make sure you're the most actionable person doing the most amount of meetings. Make sure you know your client inside out, research them, make sure you know your correct avatar so that you can pinpoint and then get out there and make some sales. But then I thought about it in terms of making, you can go out and do that, but you need to have the best possible mindset in order to motivate yourself first, but then motivate your team, the people that you work with, and also your clients to buy the products as well. And obviously, I know you guys talk a lot about that as well in your trainings and everything that you do. So we're very aligned there as well. And actually, one of the things I do say in a lot of my talks is there is a great Forbes magazine article showing that even just happier staff are 20% more productive, happier salespeople 37% more productive, and Fortune magazine showed the top 100 places to work for between 1997 and 2005. The stock market returns were 14%, and those per annum, and those outside of it were only 6%. So what that shows is that when people get into a positive state of mind, it can really create really good results. And let's face it, the results that you get in life and also in business come from the actions that you take, and they come from the habits that you create, and they come from your decisions and your mindset in terms of the way you think, speak, and act. So if you can improve that in some way or form and get yourself in the best possible way of thinking, speaking, and acting, and disseminate that down to your team and your clients, you're probably going to do pretty well. Yeah. In terms of actions, it's about understanding where you are and where you're looking to go to in terms of putting plans in place. And if you're a salesperson, you might put targets in place for the year, but you also might pay, what are you going to put targets in place for the quarter, the month? And then what daily processes and procedures and systems in place can you put in that leads you towards those targets? And I love, as I'm a holistic guy as well, can you visualize those long-term wins? Can you visualize yourself celebrating them? And can you visualize yourself in the energy of them? Because when you put yourself in the energy of something, you bring more of it to you as well. So that would be the actions that I take. There's a lot more in terms of goal setting, which we can talk about later on if you like. And then knowledge is know your client, know your product, know your industry, match your client needs to your USPs. But also knowledge is about awareness. And that's self-awareness, understanding your triggers, your traumas, your parental programs, your distractions effectively in terms of your saboteurs, but also having awareness of the market, awareness of your clients, awareness of people awareness even in your own business of the different divisions, that they have different agendas, and to be able to align them in a collaborative sense rather than a competitive sense. And then finally is energy. And energy, I always say, let's face it, I was on holiday recently over in Tenerife. When I went on holiday, I was able to spring out of bed with loads of energy. When I came back, sometimes I have to drag myself out of bed. And that's because I love going on holiday. I love traveling. So if you can create true love for what you do, love for the clients you serve, you'll have lots of vibrant energy. And then that energy gleams into my GLEAM acronym as well.
Lovely. We're going to come to that a little bit further into the podcast. Give me 1 second. I am a scribbler and my pen had ran out.
Brilliant. Well, let me just blow my nose while we go on to the next bit.
This is brilliant, by the way.
Thank you. I'm amazed I'm still able to do it.
Honestly, I would not know that you're not feeling good. This is brilliant. So the acronym is really clear to me. There's beautiful alignment between MAKE and our 10 principle ScaleX framework. We actually begin the framework with the very first principle of psyche, or mindset, as people will know. And my belief is you're either in an empowered mindset, which is the catalyst for optimizing all of the other 9 principles, or you're in a disempowered mindset. You're either in one of the two. Leaning on being in an empowered mindset, practically, what can people do to actually get themselves to that place? Because everyone will be familiar with that line. Yeah, look, you've got to have a good mindset. But practically, given the challenges of actually leading a scaling business, what have you found, given the 300 people you've interviewed for the book, the scores of executives you coached, actually living this yourself? How do we get ourselves into that empowered mindset that will increase our probability of scaling success?
Yeah, there's 2 ways. Number one is, well, it's all encapsulating energy. And in terms of when you get into the best energetic sense, in terms of mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually, it can put you in a sense of confidence of where you are and confidence of what you're about to achieve. And in terms of mindset, Brendan, if I was to ask you, do you think your name is Brendan? Do you believe your name is Brendan? Or do you just know it? You know it, right? So you need to be very, very clear in the direction that you're going in your business and your life. And that's why goals are so important. And I actually believe, I came out of university and I had a goal that I want to earn 6 figures within 5 years. I did that easily. I wanted to have a family. I did that. I want to have 2 children. I did that. I wanted to own a house with no mortgage. I did that. I wanted a summer house with no mortgage. I did that. And then I had no more goals. Then I had the near-death experience. So I think it's very important to, continue to reassess and realign and measure your goals and come up with new ones as you grow as well. I think that's so, so important in terms of what you do. But being able to get and achieve those goals, you need to be in the best energetic state. So like yourself, I have a series of things that I generally do. So this morning I got up, even though I have COVID, I went outside, I took my shoes off, I stood on the grass. It's nice and sunny outside, even though it's blooming freezing. And I actually really absorbed the energy coming through the earth, because we are energetic beings. The earth is energetic. I think it's so important to ground yourself every single morning, because quite often we're up in the air, and it's important to make sure that you're really in your own self and you're coming up with the best decisions for you and the business as well. So I do that every single day generally. I then, as I told you earlier on, I had a cold shower. I don't normally do it when I'm COVID, but I wanted to do it today because this is what I know you're into, and I am as well. I do the Wim Hof breathing technique, which I know you do, and I do that to really get the oxygen coming in the body. There's no such thing as heart cancer, and that's because oxygen runs through that area all the time. So if you can oxidize your body as much as possible, you're going to energize your body even more so, and you'll be able to think, speak, and act quicker, better, and easier. I also always have goals. I have my goals written down in I am grateful states. I have them on a whiteboard over on the other side here. I have a vision board as well. I regularly look at that, put myself in the energy of that as well. I regularly make sure that I'm learning. I'm doing podcasts. I'm learning from podcasts. I'm always analyzing my own talks to see if I can self-improve in any way or form. I'm always looking at other people who I respect in the industry, like yourself and other people, to try and understand what they do, and can I, take a few things to try and utilize them as well. It's all about self-improvement. It's all about, looking after your body. Your health is your wealth, as they always say. If you can't turn up as the best version of yourself, you can't really give the best version of yourself. So all of these will give you confidence. And I think the physique and looking after that is the easiest thing you can possibly do. And by doing that, then you'll have more confidence. You'll be able to deal with emotional situations better as well, because you'll have a stronger heart. And on that, actually, my most grounded version of consciousness that I think anybody should learn to improve is emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness, which I talked about earlier on. I have a self-awareness improvement technique. It is also conscious communication. Your word is your wand. And the biggest heartache and stress that most people have within their businesses is miscommunication between them and their teams, and them and their partners, then their suppliers, and then their clients. And if you can improve your communication skills to be more effective, understanding that, I can be on stage with 4,500 people, which I have, and there's going to be 4,500 different views of what I'm saying. So you have to, in the word relationship, I always say you break it down into 3 different parts. There's a relay in terms of conscious communication and active listening. There's your shuns, your expectations, your intentions, your conditions, whatever they might be. And then there's the ship. So you need to relay your shuns to make sure you get on board of what that ship might be. It could be the mission statement of the company. It could be what the client is looking for in terms of their needs, whatever that is. So if you can become more effective of your relaying and your active listening and understanding empathetically the other person's needs, it can hopefully create much better communication and much less miscommunication. And that'll reduce your stress massively as well, along with everything else.
Oh, I can relate to all of that. You articulate it so wonderfully and so wholly. I want to come back to something you've said a few times, and I want to ensure for our listeners that this isn't abstract to them. You talk about putting yourself in the energy of your goals. For people who are not kind of familiar with that, what does that look like? Everyone listening to this will be very familiar with the importance of clarifying their vision, getting super clear on that, breaking that down with clear goals, and aligning their actions, their objectives towards those goals in the attainment and towards the progress of their vision. But actually putting yourself in the energy of their goals. What do you mean by that, Doug?
Well, there's a great example of that that actually has happened to me. So I was speaking at the Institute Directors Global Convention for Climate Change and Sustainability and Corporate Governance for India. It was the IOD India. And it was in London. And I was surrounded by some amazing Indian people, like the CEO of Cobra Beer and the Secretary of State for India and all this kind of stuff. And I was doing a keynote speech, and I was also emceeing at the time. So I was surrounded by amazing Indian people. I was thinking of my daughter, who I hadn't seen in a while, and she wished she'd reached out. And we were talking about, obviously, climate change and sustainability. I left the conference, went to the airplane, because I was going back to Dublin. And on the airplane, I sat in the window seat. And within about 5 minutes, this guy came up with his little daughter on his lap. And she started reaching out to my phone and started playing. I love kids, so we got chatting. And found out that he was one of the lead consultants from one of the big consultancy firms in sustainability and climate change. And to his right was his wife, who was Indian. And this kind of stuff happens to me all the time, that when you put yourself in the energy of something, you bring more of it to you. So I always say to people, like when I was presenting in the old days, my funds, I might go out to a financial advisor using the same presentation, say for a European equity fund, and I get £1 million. I go and speak to a private banker, I might get 5 million quid, my asset manager, 10 million quid, institutional pension fund manager, one gave me 285 million quid in one go. So it's by putting yourself in the right place, the right time, with the right people, you can get very different results. So really get clear on your avatar, really get good clarity of who you want to approach in terms of the client that you want to be around, and find where those clients are and spend time with them. So like, for example, I would fly CityJet in the old days when I was going over to London regularly, and I put myself in business class, not because I'm big, because I'm only 5'8", but because, and I'd always put myself in the middle seat because there's 3 seats, because I got 2 people that I can potentially talk to that potentially could be, clients. And one guy was the CEO of Game On Media. He brought me in, he paid me $5,000 to speak to his company. So it just shows you, put yourself in the right place, right time, with the right people, you can get very different results.
Brilliant. The awareness you speak about, and you said you've an awareness improvement technique, and again, we're aligned on this. Back to kind of acronyms, I think of the A to E of a scaling psyche, and it's self-awareness, self-belief, self-control, self-discipline, and self-esteem in terms of the story you're telling yourself. Your awareness improvement technique, what does that look like? Because I feel that's absolutely critical in the context of understanding whether you're in that empowered scaling psyche state or disempowered scaling psyche state. So what is this technique in terms of actually becoming more aware?
Sure, Brendan. So we're all right. We're all a product of our parents, preachers, teachers, and past relationships and experiences. And that sometimes implements or embodies even some subconscious programming in terms of the way we think, speak, and act. And there are great leaders out there that I've worked with who are very conscious, great leaders. And there are other great leaders who are not, who basically bulldozed their way to the top and left a trail behind them of carnage. So sometimes when we bring people in, obviously we have our discs and our Myers-Briggs and all that kind of stuff. And that's great for labeling somebody. But what I really want to do is try and take them from where they are to where they potentially can be, the best version of them. So what I get people to do is to have a look and analyze their life and do a SWOT analysis of themselves. So we talked about purpose early on. So I always say when you're looking for purpose, if you don't already have it and you're trying to find a path, just write down what you're really gifted at doing, write down what you really love doing, and write down what you can add value to other people in some way or form and find a match. Or the other way is to, you and I stand on stage. So, if you're 90 years of age, you're standing on stage, what would you be most passionate about to leave as your legacy? And when you know what that is, reverse engineer yourself back to where you are today and find out what gifts do I have that will help enable me to get there in some way or form. So that gives you kind of positives. But we can't just look at the positives because there's still going to be certain distractions. I always say, when the fox is going for the rabbit, there's still going to be certain other things here and here that might get in the way. So that's why it's so important to have a look at yourself in a state of self-awareness, understanding what are your triggers, traumas, and saboteurs that don't serve you in some way or form. So could be procrastination, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, defensiveness, controlling, whatever. You know them. So write them down in a state of self-awareness. Having said that, all of us still sometimes are a bit blinkered in our own goggles, should we say. So it's important to have a look at the people around you because your vibe attracts your tribe as well. And the people that come into your life generally reflect back areas that need to self-improve on yourself. So if you can have a look maybe at 5 people in your life and write down all the things that you think they sabotage themselves with, and choose your mum or dad because you generally model them in the first 7 years of your life. And then also have a look at things you don't like about them. So sabotage and you don't like. And write them all down and see if there's even a commonality between 2 of them. If there is, own it, put it on the master list, that self-aware list. And then finally, find someone you trust, something I learned in Kabbalah. It's an ego exercise where I might ring you up, Brendan, if we knew each other a bit better and say, Brendan, I want you to tell me everything you don't like about me and everything you think I sabotage myself with. I won't retort in any way or form. I'll write everything down. I won't even look at it today. 3 days later, I'll have a look at it with a sense of compassion. I'll add things to this, even if they don't think they might be me, because some of them might be reflecting back to you, right? But I'll add them anyway. And then that way I have a very comprehensive list of my personal views, my reflective views, and my phone a friend views. And you can add into that exercise as well, just to help release certain tensions of energy within you of who do I need to forgive in my life? who have I had angst towards in the past? A past boss, a past partner, a father, a mother, or something like that. And I have a forgiveness technique, which I do with people to help them forgive and let go as well of that as well, because you can mix that in to the mix as well. And by doing that, then hopefully you can release energy and also make the person aware. So quite often, in this room, I had a 6'4" guy who was director of Salesforce, but he was a former American football player, pro-American football player. And he was literally crying because what I got him to do is to write all these down and then say them out loud in front of me. So you go, at times, I procrastinate. At times, I don't feel worthy of love. Whatever it is. And say them with passion, with your hand on your heart, with meaning. And that way you're showing awareness, you're showing acceptance, and you have accountability in terms of the other person there as well. Also your own subconscious mind. And then by saying them out loud, it really helps get rid of them. And then I always get them to rip the piece of paper up. I had one guy in Dallas who knew what I was going to do. He had a barbecue ready, so he threw it on the barbecue and blew it up. Whatever you need to do to kind of do a little ceremony to get rid of it. And then I get them to do a short list of the I am opposites. So, for example, if you're not a good active listener, with quite a lot of our men aren't out there in terms of their women, I might get you to do something like, I am always listening with love and understanding the other person's perspective. And you put that list, I always get them to put it on a piece of paper, thin piece of paper, on the mirror next to where you do your teeth. So you can do it in the morning and you do it in the evening and you voice it out loud. And by voicing it out loud, you're voicing it back into the subconscious mind. And by doing that, hopefully you can create neuroplasticity and change the way you think, speak, and act. And do it for a minimum of 21 days, preferably 60 days, to embody it into the psyche, if that makes sense.
Completely. I'm a big believer that your beliefs direct your destiny. Mm-hmm. And so for those that come into our community and in the context of psyche, in supporting them to increase the probability of their scaling success and really optimizing the other 9 principles, we want to support them in creating that awareness around limiting beliefs, those things that are impeding their scaling progress. In your experience, Doug, are there 2 or 3 kind of limiting beliefs that show up consistently in the business leaders that come into your realm?
Yeah, I had, he won't mind me telling you because he gave me a LinkedIn recommendation. The CIO of Dell, he's 62. At the time when he was working with me, he was 61. He didn't want to do this. He said, I'm 61 years of age. Why would I want to do some awareness technique? It sounds like a load of rubbish. And I said, look, Pat, just do it. I promise you, I've done it with other people as well. So he did it. And actually, not with him, but with somebody else. They didn't want to do it. And sometimes, I'm not saying this other person was, but sometimes narcissistic people don't like looking at their imperfections. So I said to this other person, actually, which was quite funny, I said, Bob, now I know some people don't like doing this exercise because they're narcissists and they don't like looking at their imperfections, but I know you're not one of those. So I'm sure you'll do it. And of course, he's sitting there going, well, I'm going to flip and prove him wrong that I'm not. So, and he did it. But going back to Pat, and Pat did this, and it was amazing. So Pat's 62 years of age, got his best 360 he ever got. His relationship with his wife improved massively. His dad and him weren't speaking, and they started speaking again and playing golf together. And one of his old mates, who he hadn't seen in over 30 years, rang him up out of the blue and invited him to his daughter's wedding. So something in his vibe had changed. And I always say that your vibe attracts your tribe. So in some way or form, something changed within him, and then it changed around him. Because I always say there's a massive culture in business and life of this blame and pointing the finger. But when we point the finger, there's 3 pointing back at us. So when you take responsibility for your own self, your change, and your accountability for you, it's amazing how the people around you change as well. They either leave your life or they just see you in a different way and they respond to you in a different way as well. That makes sense. So
it makes complete sense. What was holding Pat back? What did he become aware of? What was his limiting belief in the context of forging better relationships and generally kind of improving the overall quality of his life?
Yeah, so Pat had been a senior vice president within Dell for quite some time. And I think because he was coming to the end of his career, they brought him down a rank. And I think that knocked his ego. And I actually reframed his mindset. I said, to be honest with you, Pat, there is hundreds of SVPs and VPs out there. I said, if I was bringing someone in to speak at, the ScaleX Summit or the Leadership and Life Mastery Summit or whatever, and you had a title of CIO, Chief Information Officer, I think that rocks. I think that's much better. And I think I'd much prefer to have that on the list of one of my speakers than your VP thing. And that helped him reprogram the way he looked at things. And I also helped him reprogram. And I think what happens is a lot of people become quite competitive with the people around them that they work with. And I don't like that. I like people to look at it that people come into your life for two reasons. One, business reason, but two, they come in spiritually to help you grow in some way or form. So if you see someone else that you don't like, why not reflect back on yourself and say, look, could that even be slightly in me as well? And isn't it such a gift that person's come into my life to help me realize that and grow in some way or form?
We mentioned the GLEAM acronym. It would be remiss of me not to, we've teased our audience with that, it would be remiss not to pick it up before we move into our close. So share with our audience what the GLEAM acronym is. And again, it's full of practical, tactical things that our listeners can action immediately from listening to the podcast.
Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, so GLEAM, I thought to myself, with my make acronym, the energy bit at the end, what brings us the most energy? And that's obviously the sun. And I decided to look at GLEAM and see if I could come up with some kind of acronym. And it really came out well. So obviously G, I changed the G quite a lot, depending on the audience. But goals is obviously one of them, which we discussed earlier on. And goals are so important. With the vision board, I was coaching Tazy Valenza, who's in Star Wars, and also her husband as well, Harvey. And Harvey she hasn't taken Harvey's name. But Harvey was telling me that when they were moving into their now house, he found Tazy's old vision board, which had been in the garage for years. And he brought it out and he had a look at it. He goes, my word, Tazy, you put the house we're moving into on the vision board like wow. 20 years ago. Wow. And she's going, yeah, I know. So I just love that. And I just believe, I have a vision board over there. And I truly believe that, when you put yourself in the energy of something and set goals and you put direction behind them, it can be massively important. So, for example, if we have a look, say, like I might have a goal for my business to make 500,000 next year, just for me personally. And I would have to decide how to do that. And I would always tell people, well, write down all your goals, but then choose a particular goal and your main goal, what it might be, and write down, say, 20 different ideas how you can achieve that goal. So obviously for me, I could sell 25,000 books. I could do 50 talks. I could do, 50 trainings. I could, whatever it is, lots of different ways of doing that, coming up with those different ideas, then put ideas towards those goals as well to give them direction. And obviously some goals can be quite big and, we always say 10x them as well and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to remember that it's the journey that counts. So make sure you set good direction, good tasks, and good ideas to lead you towards those. The second G that I like is gratitude. And the reason being is that, I've got 2 children. I'm sure you've got children as well. If you give a child a present and not grateful, why would you feel like giving them anything else? So if your subconscious mind is not grateful for everything, the good and the bad that you've already achieved in life, then why would you open yourself up to receive anything else? So gratitude is the attitude. And that links in actually to my next G, which is gamify. And I think sometimes people take life too seriously. Even us coaches, we sometimes talk all about the future all the time. And, what are your future goals? What are you doing all the time? And we forget to sometimes just live and have fun in the present moment. And gamifying life. I had this near-death experience. I have my own opinions on life. You might not believe them, but I do believe that, as Einstein says, energy never dissipates. It just moves from one form to another. So why would you or I just come down? Because I believe that this body is just a spacesuit and the energy within is the real us. Why would you and I just come down as you or I? Why would we not come down as the king, the queen, the prince, the pauper, the invalid, the Olympian, to experience life in different ways and different perspectives, to understand the entirety of this game of life? And based on that perspective, which may or not be true, I don't know, we can have a look at life and gamify it in a fun way, understanding that maybe you're playing this game of life so often that you're testing yourself like a PlayStation game to the ultimate to see if you can still get through all this shit and come out the other side as the best version of you. Now, I will put a little bit of caption on that because I do work with a lot of people who are depressed and have suicide or consider suicide. And I would say that if you are having that hard time, and I am mentioning reincarnation, I believe you chose this life for a reason. And I believe that if you took it away from yourself, it would be like Groundhog Day. You'd probably have to come back down and do it all over again. So why not get it out of the way this time rather than having to do it all over again? So that leads on to L. And L is letting go is the first thing. And, the past is history. The future is a mystery. The present is a gift. So live in the now. You can't do anything about the future in the future. You can only do it in the now. So if you have plans for the future, make them now. And learn to earn. Tiger Woods has a coach, Ronaldo has a coach, Messi has a coach. They're the best in the best of what they do, but they still have a coach because they want to self-improve. They want to mastermind themselves up to another level. They want to see maybe things they don't see in themselves. So don't be afraid to let your shield down and take someone in to help you in some way or form and learn. E is emotional intelligence, which I mentioned, which is all about, obviously, awareness, which we talked about, but also conscious communication. And I always say that your word is your wand, and the sentences you say can be the sentences you condemn yourself and others to. And I have actually genuine proof of that, because my dad said I was a pain in the arse, and I got a pain in the arse there and had 2 operations there. My mum said, make sure you put your coat on, otherwise you'll catch pneumonia. I caught pneumonia within 2 weeks. My mum said I was a pain in the neck. I knocked a vertebra out of the place playing hockey. And I really, truly believe that you need to be careful of what you say to create what you want rather than what you don't want. I don't believe that the subconscious mind, understands, I hope this and I hope that. It just hears the words in between. So make sure you speak positively rather than negatively.
I'm worried, Doug. I came from a very militant Irish mother who told me that I was a skitter and git.
Well, you seem to have been doing pretty well for yourself, Brendan, and you come from a heart space as well, so which is lovely.
Oh, brilliant. The A.
The A, sorry. A is authenticity, which you mentioned earlier on. I believe that the best version of you is you. There's too many people on Instagram buying followers, faking it till they make it, and everything like that. You know what? If you have 1,000 great followers, it's better than 1,000,000 fake followers. And also A is affirmations, being able to speak to yourself. You're the person who speaks to yourself most. Sometimes it can be the most intelligent conversation you have. So you might as well make it positive at the same time. Speak to yourself like you're your own best friend. Often we don't. And remember, there's always an angel on one shoulder and a demon on the other one. And sometimes the demon screams louder. Give it a kick, knock it to the side. And remember, catch yourself out. When you hear that negative thought, say, really? Is that my truth? I don't think so. I can do this. And you really can. And then finally, M is meaning and modeling the masters. Modeling is obviously finding a coach, which I mentioned earlier on. Model someone who's been there, done that, might be able to help you get there quicker, faster, easier, and avoid a few of those, cul-de-sacs along the way. And then meaning. Meaning is find that sense of purpose. As I said, you can find your purpose by what you love doing, you're gifted doing, and how you can add value to people, or turn your mess into a message and give it meaning. Or, as I said, find the energetics of what you do and how it adds value to people in some way or form. Whatever it is, find that sense of purpose. But I will, last thing say, is enjoy the journey. And the meaning of life is not necessarily about just making money. The greatest gift that we have as human beings, as physical beings, living this physical existence, is our 5 senses. The gift of being able to see the sun, to see the stars, and the people that we love. The gift of being able to hear the whistle of the wind and the sea lapping up on the beach and hearing someone saying, I love you. The gift of being able to taste chocolate and wine, which with COVID at the moment I can't, and the gift of being able to touch in terms of a kiss or a hug. These are the true gifts in life. And if you really appreciate the true 5 senses for the basics that they are, getting out in nature and enjoying life, it'll reduce your stress and increase your energy to perform at the highest level in everything you do and gleam that inner glow.
Oh, my words. I feel that that's a mic drop there. It's challenged me to question whether I should pose my traditional closing question, which is, given the incredible life that you have lived to date, the life that you continue to live, and the goals and vision you have for the future, can you provide with our audience, distilling everything that you have learned and you've shared with us today, 3 timeless takeaways?
Yeah, I think the number one for me is, to really find what truly lights your heart up, and really try and put yourself in the energy of that every single day. And even remember, fear is the thing which is false evidence appearing real, and it stops us following what we truly love doing in life. And even when I get up on stage, I used to be nervous, but I'm not anymore, because I put my hand on my heart every single time I go on, before I go on stage, and say, I am Doug Gordon, I am my heart. Please let me connect the hearts of the audience in order to bless rather than impress and add as much value. And by doing that, you're coming from a place of love, coming from a place of heart, instead of a place of ego in terms of your head. And I think we can do that in all interactions that we have, not just going on stage, but whether it be going into a board meeting, talking to your team, talking to your partner, whatever it is. If you can utilize that concept of coming from your heart self rather than your head self, it'll also keep you in that space of heart and hopefully keep you aligned to that goal or goals or mission, that purpose that is coming from here rather than here. That'll be the first thing I'd say. The second thing, which I mentioned because of my near-death experience, is to reset and realign your goals on a regular basis. I think it's very important to maybe take yourself away from everything, maybe once a quarter, once a year, whatever it is for you, and just really go into your own self, by yourself, and decide, am I aligned still to that same thing? Because obviously, as you grow in life, things change in life. And when you change in life, your aspirations, your goals might change in life. So I think it's very important to make sure that you align those as well. And as leaders, as we get more senior in our life as well, I think giving to others is the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves. So making sure that we're aligning to a passion project on the side, or aligning the business in some way or form to feed that passion project, can give you a real sense of inspiration within. And remember, in the word inspiration, it comes from the word in spirit, it means it comes inside of you, whereas the word motivation comes from the word motive, which is outside of you. So if you can really get into a state of inspiration and really get your staff and the people you work with into that state of inspiration, it'll really keep you on track in terms of that heartfelt love for what you do, who you serve, and how you can help the world in some way or form.
Doug, you've mentioned your visions board, your goals for the future. What is next for you? Because you have so much energy, you have so much wisdom to share. What does 2025 hold for you?
Well, 2025 for me, I would just love to get on as many stages as possible to inspire as many people's hearts. That would be one of my chief goals. I have got another goal. I'm sitting down with one of the dragons of Dragon's Den, where I have a clothing brand idea that is all about bringing love and positive energy to people through the symbolization of the brand, the intention behind the brand, and hopefully then that will link into, I'm looking, if it works, I'm looking to give a large percentage of that to mental health. Because I have a personal initiative to try and help people, especially children, with mental health as well. I think it's so important that we make sure that our children have the emotional intelligence in schools and in early ages to be able to cope with the world that we're in now as well. So I don't know if the brand work. Obviously, clothing brands there's hundreds of them all around the world, thousands of them. But it's something that is quite passionate. Came up with it, kind of downloaded it. So that's something I'm going to be speaking to a Dragon's Den about, or Dragon of Dragon's Den, in a couple of weeks' time.
Incredible. Well, I want to thank you today for the gift of you, for bringing me and our listeners your full self, despite the fact that you've COVID, which didn't come through at all. You've delivered so much value in the last hour with wonderful energy. Really, I'm very, very grateful for that. So thank you. To get you out on more stages, if people want to connect with you and feel some of that, get some of that Doug energy in person, how best to connect with you, Doug?
Well, my website is Doug D. Gordon, Gordon, dougdgordon.com. You can obviously get me on LinkedIn. I tend to answer my LinkedIn messages mostly. I do have 26,000, so it can be difficult at times, but I will get back to you, promised. But yeah, dougdgordon.com has lots of information there. You'll see lots of different podcasts and lots of different talks on different topics. I don't just talk about one topic. I have lots of different topics which might add some value to you.
Doug, I wish you every success with everything that you're doing. You're giving back to mental health charities through the various initiatives you've described is is just a wonderfully meaningful thing to do. So with that and everything else, I wish you every success. Thanks again for sharing your time, your wisdom, your energy with me today. Take care.
Thanks, Brendan. Love all you do.